right, good morning, everyone. Luke chapter 10. And he said to them, come away by yourselves to a desolate place and rest a while. And many were coming and going. They had no leisure even to eat. So this is a famous chapter about, the feeding of the 5,000. And so Jesus says, let's go away by ourselves to a desolate place and rest a while. So I think, this verse tells us that we do need rest, actually. After a very busy season of ministry, it's actually a very legitimate thing for us to stop doing ministry a bit and rest. And so therefore we don't have to feel guilty about that, okay? But at the same time, I think this verse gives us a very important calibration about rest. First of all, when I think of rest, I often think of like me vegging out somewhere or not doing anything, moving away from everybody and being by myself. I know that I'm an extrovert, but actually I'm an internally a very extreme introvert in heart. I think at heart, I was a Lone Ranger, remember? But notice the picture here. The text paints another picture, like come away by yourselves to a desolate place, and basically Jesus is also there. So it's a picture of spending time of relaxation with other people who are doing ministry, and this is where true recreation can happen, like to recreate energy, And I think oftentimes what we choose to do during our recreation time actually is the opposite. It actually saps energy from doing the work of God even more, to serve God even more. I think we need to be mindful about what we choose to do in order to recreate energy, right? So yeah, you want to come away by yourselves to rest a while before you tackle, right? But then also this kind of calibration about what is busy, what we consider to be busy work, the season of busyness, right? This has had not even leisure even to eat, and man, I'm like, when was the last time that I was so busy that I didn't even have leisure to eat? Sometimes when I'm busy, I forget to eat, but it's because I forget. It's not because I want to and I don't even have time to eat. That's very rare. Um, yeah, so I think what we often think, or at least what I think of busy time, might be a very first world problem. A first world standard. I remember YWAM Mexico mission trip when I went. There was a translator that would show up to our door every morning at 8 o'clock, 8 a.m., and stayed with us for the entire day. And then near the end of that 10-day trip, I found out that, oh, wait, like, where do you live? Like, oh, over there. And then 2 hours away, 2 hours walking. He would walk 2 hours every morning to get to the headquarters by 8 a.m. And I'm like, man, gosh, okay, like what I consider to be hard work or busy, I don't know, just it I felt a lot of shame in a very good way about that. So going back to the text, we know what happens. Like people see Jesus going away on a boat, they guess which direction they're heading, and then there's like they run ahead of him to get there. And by the time he gets there, it's 10,000 people. That's imagine like after Focus or after like winter retreat. After a lot of hard work, we go, okay, let's get away, have Joy Day by ourselves. Yay, it's like, okay, cool, have a little small group and go to Sierra Lodge, and then there's like 500 people there of people that we ministered, like students, and they're hungry. I'll be so annoyed, right? Because that means, again, like that meant that they didn't have time to eat. Notice how, however long Jesus taught them, like the disciples are like, okay, look, they didn't have anything to eat, they're famished. Let's send them away, Lord, so that they can have something to eat. And that also means that there was no lunch break, there was no lunch break for Jesus and the disciples either. So it turns out that actually the pattern here is like here's ministry, right? Here's ministry, and then here was a desolate place that they were trying to get to on the boat, you know. But there was ministry. So the only like lonely like getaway time that they had was in the boat in the process, going from ministry to ministry. And I don't know, I just thought that maybe this is kind of the pattern of following Jesus, where we do get some rest between going from meeting needs of people from to another from one thing to another. Now, I don't think we can actually say this is the model that we should shoot for, because remember that Jesus did want them to spend some time of rest here. But guess what? Things change and things get interrupted because a bunch of people see where they're going and they're there. Um, so I don't think we can say this is the ideal model, but I think at least what we can say is that when this picture, when our plans get interrupted, and then it turns out that the only rest that we got was in between these two things, we shouldn't begrudge that. You know, we shouldn't begrudge that because Jesus welcomed that actually, that kind of pattern, and I think this is a pattern of what following Jesus is like. And then Jesus' response of amazing, had compassion on that crowd, right? That annoying crowd. And wow, that's a heart of love. Of course, I'm not there yet, but at least I think we can admire Jesus for having this kind of love for the crowd. I mean, there's that strange phenomena of, when we see one person suffering, we feel compassion, but when we see 10 people, when we see 100, when we see 1,000 people suffering, we actually don't feel compassion. It's just really weird. It's because our minds are broken. But Jesus' mind is not broken in that way. His emotions are not broken like that. He still treats the crowd like individuals. And I think that's a wonderful thing because we assume that if I'm part of a big, great crowd like this, if I'm somehow part of a big crowd, then I'm just a nameless number. But even if I feel that way, Jesus looks at the crowd and has compassion. That means he looks at the crowd and looks at individuals. He sees me. He sees John. He sees you. He sees Michaela. He sees Jeff. All the Jeffs of Inner High. He sees you, and that's awesome. I praise the Lord, right? I think this multiplication of 5 loaves and 2 fish, I think it's amazing that we've been experiencing this verse through the Focus Retreat and GCWR. Just a multitude of people being fed spiritually, the gospel message, which is far more important than food. What little we did, man, it got multiplied. And that's how we can spend our lives. That one life that you have, do you really want to spend that one life, that 5 loaves and 2 fish, just to entertain yourself? So I hope that I want to encourage us. Let's really continue to live in that way. Just a glimpse that we got during the past few months. Let's continue to do that. Amen. All right. See you tomorrow.